Using the pre-built version of SpeedDuel decks is one of the funnest ways to enjoy a duel. For the most part, Konami has a rough idea of what each character deck is trying to accomplish, and they do their best at making each deck feel somewhat near the same power level. Somewhat. That being said, there's another way to enjoy speed duels, the way that I personally enjoy playing them. That being by optimizing each of the character strategies by using 3 copies of each of the character boxes. And that's exactly what I plan on doing on today's video. Today we'll be taking a look at the GX Duel Academy box and upgrading each of the character decks. But before we do begin, there are a few ground rules that I would like to set before we begin. First, I'm allowed to use whatever skill I desire for each of the characters as long as they're related to their strategy. Most of the characters in these sets come with at least 2 different skills that you can use, so it'll be up to me which one I prefer to use and build around. 2. I'm only able to use the cards that each individual character comes with in their regular deck. This means I'm not allowed to use any of the cards in the miscellaneous section. And finally, 3. I'll do my best to still build into what the original idea of the strategy was trying to accomplish, no matter how bad I think the original strategy might be. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video at any point in time, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe. As a matter of fact, you should just subscribe right now since I have a plethora of different videos discussing speed duels like this. And if you think you're already subscribed, then do me a favor and double check. It goes a long way in helping the channel grow. But if you would like to take your support a step further, then you can also become a channel member for only 99 cents. Rewards that come with this includes a badge next to your name, custom Topsy emojis, and a shout out at the end of the videos. But with all that being said, let's begin. Alright then guys, so here we are once again, and today we're going to be talking about Midterm Paradox. Before we do begin, I did want to go ahead and apologize real quick in case the video quality and audio sounds a bit off. I am currently on vacation, so I don't have my audio recording equipment on me right now, so I tried making do. And additionally, I am a little bit under the weather at the moment, so apologies in advance. But with that being said, as I said, we're going to be talking about Midterm Paradox today, and I see no better character to start off with than Jaden himself. Now, if you saw the last video in this series, then you are fully aware of what to expect when it comes to this deck. This is almost a carbon copy of the last deck that Jaden ended up getting in Duel Academy. Honestly, this one is slightly better, and it's for one card in particular, that being none other than Blazeman. But that's not only the good part about this deck, the fact that we also got the Omni Hero, Elemental Hero, Nova Master. These 2 cards in particular carry Jaden's deck. So actually building a deck for Jaden wasn't as difficult as I originally thought, because of the fact that with 3 Nova Masters and 3 Blazemen, they can probably make anything work with this strategy. Aside from that, Jaden did have some other cool stuff in this deck, whether it be cards like the H Heated Hard, Skyscraper 2 is pretty neat as well, and in addition, Hero Counterattack was another really nifty card. And that's pretty much where it ends. I will say that Jaden's new skills are significantly better. We do have Hero World as one of the skills alongside Heroes Unite Fusion. The Hero World skill in particular is really interesting for the very fact that it gives you more utility for your vanilla heroes, while the other skill in Heroes Unite is really interesting as well because of the fact that it allows you to make your multi-material heroes a lot easier. So building around these skills in mind, I had some ideas of what exactly we could do with Jaden. So with that being said, let's take a look at what I did. Alright then, so here is the deck that I ended up creating for Jaden, and as you can see, Blazeman is a really big part of this strategy, so much so that we are leveling up with our copies of A Hero Lives as well. So let's break it down. We are still playing a decent amount of the regular Elemental Hero monsters, with the addition of cards like Bubbleman making an appearance as well. Additionally, something else you'll notice is the fact that we went ahead and doubled up on Burstinatrix, because of the very fact that if we open up a polymerization with a Burstinatrix in any hero, or a Blazeman and any hero, this means that we immediately get access to Nova Master, which is really important. This is one of the best cards in the deck, and realistically speaking, it's one of the only cards you're going to be making in this strategy. But as I mentioned already, A Hero Lives is another super important part of this deck for the very fact that Blazeman is integral to your deck, because with Blazeman, not only do you get to go ahead and search out for polymerization on normal summon or special summon, which hence the Hero Lives, but additionally, if you already have all your polys in hand, you have the ability to go ahead and mill your deck for any Elemental Hero monster. So I think that's a really nifty ability from this card. Aside from that, we did end up adding a copy of Heated Hard and Righteous Justice because of the fact that with this, our Nova Master becomes a real big menace, making him a 3100 attack monster, but additionally give him piercing damage, which makes him really good. While the Righteous Justice gives us the ability to go ahead and pop our opponent's back row. Now, to go deeper as to why exactly we're playing the hero monsters that we are, well, it's because of the fact that we are playing the Electrum, additionally the Tempest, and the Wild Wingman. For that very reason, I kinda still did want to have the ability to go ahead and make these cards, and not just focus it solely on Nova Master. But I thought this version of the deck would be a lot more fun. Additionally, if you wanted to replace any cards in this deck, or you didn't like the idea of doubling up on so many cards, you could potentially play around with the idea of playing Hero Counter Attack, but I feel like this deck just doesn't have the ability to go ahead and use any resources in the graveyard, so a card like Hero Counter Attack didn't feel super good in this strategy. Also, we're not playing Blade Edge, so you can't get full advantage of summoning out a hero for free. I like the card, but it just didn't feel good in this strategy. Lastly, let's talk about the skill that we're going to be using. We are going to be using the Heroes Unite Fusion, and the only reason we're going to be using this skill is for the very fact that we do have the off chance of making the multi-omni heroes, like the Electrum or the Tempest. But primarily the main reason we have this skill right here is because it is another way to fusion summon without needing the polymerization, and that's primarily why we have it. And with that being said, that is Jaden. In the comment section below, give me your thoughts on it. Now let's move on to the next character. Alright then, so moving on now, we have Cyrus. And Cyrus objectively, I believe, has the best deck to come out of Midterm Paradox, for the very fact that out of all the characters in this set, he has the most complete strategy out of everyone, because of the fact that we are playing just a straight up Roid strategy. And on top of that, the deck has a lot of really great qualities to it. Not only, as I mentioned, does it have pretty much every Roid monster you can ask for, even with legacy support like Mixeroid, but additionally we get some pretty good support cards with like cards such as Shield Crush, which are really nice as just generic removal. Aside from that, we have awesome cards like Supercharge that gives you your deck some level of consistency, and even something like a weapon change is kind of interesting as a way to go ahead and utilize the high defense that your Roid monsters typically have. And yeah, for the most part, the deck is fairly concise. The extra deck leaves a bit to be desired because of the fact that a lot of these Roid monsters are really difficult to summon or just not worth summoning at all. And as for the skills that Cyrus has, that's where he kind of shines. He has two incredible skills in the Small Roid Big City, and additionally, the Roids are alright. Two really great skills that give you very different play styles, so we're going to be exploring those in today's video. So with that being said, let's take a look at what I did with Cyrus. Alright then, so here is the first deck that I ended up making for Cyrus. This deck is going to be utilizing the skill, the Roids are alright. I think that this is probably the best skill you could be using for Cyrus in this kind of environment, just for the very fact that the other skill in Small Roid Big City is very vulnerable to back removal. And the second that you lose this field spell, the game becomes a lot more difficult to go ahead and play. For that very reason, we're going to be utilizing the Roids are alright instead. Don't get me wrong, I actually ended up building a separate deck for that other skill that I'll showcase in a second, but this is why we went with this skill. So as you can see, we are going to be playing multiple copies of Rescue Roid, for the very fact that we're playing the Roids are alright means that on summon, the Rescue Roid ends up becoming a 2200 attack point monster when it declares an attack, which is pretty incredible. Moving on, we have the Steam Roid. I am not a huge fan of in particular for the very fact that he has a quite detrimental effect where his attack gets reduced by 500 when he gets declared attack against. That does kind of suck, but it's okay. We do need him in order to make some of our fusion, so it's still here, and overall it's not a horrible monster, so we keep him around. Additionally, Drill Roid is pretty great for the very fact that it's able to out any defense monster, so it kind of removes the need of Shield Crush in the deck and kind of does its job for itself, so that's pretty awesome. The Stealth Roid is great overall, but my main issue with this card is the fact that it is really sad back removal, but we have to play multiples of him because it is our only form of back removal for our opponent, so that's why we have it here. Moving on, we have only one copy of Truckroid. I happen to be a really big fan of Truckroid as a monster. I think he has such a fun play style, but in this deck, the only utility it truly has is as a monster to go ahead and make the Stealth Union. So that's why we only have it at 1 in this deck. Overall, really great card, and it shines better in the other deck. We'll talk about in a second. Submarine Roid, I would be playing more copies of this card if it wasn't limited to 1, so do keep in mind. If this thing wasn't limited to 1 or you're playing without a ban list, play 3 of them. It's that good of a card. After that, we have Express Roid. This is non-ironically one of the most important cards in your deck for the very fact that whenever you're able to send a Roid monster to the graveyard, on summon, Express Roid is able to recover 2 of them from your grave, meaning that it is giving you the ability to go ahead and make your fusion monsters a lot easier by getting those resources from the graveyard back to your hand, which is really important. And on that same note, Mixroid is another really important card because on summon, it is treated as any Roid monster by just tributing itself and summoning it from the deck, which is incredible. And we already talked about the Ambulance Roid. Moving on, we have double copies of Vehicroid Connection Zone. With the skill that we're going to be using, we're able to summon out any of our monsters from our extra deck, which is kind of dumb that this spell card only limits you to Vehicroid fusion monster, which makes no sense to me. So Ambulance Roid wouldn't be able to be made, so that kind of sucks. Additionally, we have the Supercharge and the Ambulance Call. So as a whole, this deck is pretty great. It works nicely, and primarily what you're going to be doing is just summoning out your Void monsters and just trying to deal as much damage to your opponent as possible with just attacking into them. As you will notice, we're not playing the UFO Roid, and that's for the very reason that we are already playing the Mixer Roid. I feel like this card is just overall better than the UFO Roid. That's why we're not playing it. And yeah, as a whole, this deck performs really well, and it's really fun to pilot. But as I did mention, I'm going to showcase to you guys how the other version of the deck would look like. This one's going to be using the Small Roid Big City, and one thing you'll notice right off the bat is the fact that the Red Truck Roid is going to be a bigger component of this deck because it has a really fun playstyle. When it declares an attack, you're able to use the effect of your skill to go ahead and reverse his attack and defense, making him a 2k attacker, and whenever it destroys the monster by battle, it equips that monster and gains its original attack. So this card has the ability to snowball really quickly. And aside from that, one thing you'll notice is that we aren't playing the materials needed for the Ambulance Rescue Roid because we can't really make him, at least with this fusion spell. And yeah, this is the version of the deck. It plays fairly similarly, but the big difference is the fact that these monsters are able to use their defense instead of their attack when declaring attack. So alright, let's move on to the next character now. Alright then guys, up next we have Bastion Misawa with his H2O strategy. And I'm not gonna lie, out of the box, Bastion has one of the most confusing decks around for the very fact that his strategy just does not work. You can try as much as you want, but the water deck is just not good at all. Water Dragon is just too convoluted of a card in order to summon. It's like taking the worst parts of fusion summoning and the worst parts of ritual summoning and combining it into an atrocious baby. And honestly, the skills that the deck ends up getting don't make it any better, which is really upsetting. Incredibly awesome looking cards, but good god, it's good luck making these. However, there is something interesting when it comes to Bastion, when the fact that one of his skills in Under Pressure actually makes it to where you can make some of these cards actually kind of useful. And we'll talk about that more in a bit. As I said, the deck primarily is composed of the H2O cards with the Deuterion, the Hydrogeddon, and the Oxygeddon, which is pretty cool to see that we actually end up getting Deuterion in this deck as legacy support for the strategy, which is very much needed. And we have a bunch of the H2O cards, but there is one card in particular that kind of just stands out amongst the rest. That being Carbon Add-on. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Carbon Add-on, just know that both in the TCG and in speed duels, this card is pretty damn strong, and it's going to be one of the main components of the deck we're going to be using in today's strategy. So with that being said, let's take a look at what I ended up doing for our boy Bastion. Okay then, so this is the deck that I ended up building for Bastion. As you can see, yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting strategy we have going on right here. And the skill that we're going to be using for him is going to be Under Pressure. And I happen to think it's the best skill that he gets access to. Essentially, this skill tries to make the monster Hazanaru as your own boss monster of the deck, giving him multiple abilities. Essentially, he has a watered down version of Serpent Knight Dragon's original skill, if you remember that. So as you can see, we are playing one copy of Deuterion. The only reason we are playing Deuterion in this deck is because of the fact that we are playing a Legendary Ocean, and with the help of a Legendary Ocean, we're able to summon out Deuterion without ever having to tribute summon. Not only does this give us a massive monster on our field, but additionally, it gives us the ability to revive cards like the Hydrogeddon or the Oxygeddon from the graveyard, giving us a lot of offensive power. On that same note, we are playing 3 copies of the Hydrogeddon and the Oxygeddon for the very fact that they are really important for the effect of the Hazanaru excavation effect. We'll talk about more once we start dissecting the skill. Finally, we are playing 3 copies of the Carbon Add-on. This guy is crucial to the deck because it's the main way you're going to be getting access to your Hazanaru. The great thing about the Carbon Add-on is that once in the graveyard, you're able to go ahead and banish him to special summon the Hazanaru from the deck in defense mode, which is not a bad thing because Hazanaru has really nice defense. After that, I tried filling out the deck with a slew of just Bone Trap cards that just had the most utility as a whole. The Curse Seal of the Forbidden Spell is our main form of dealing with our opponent's back row with that only activated spell card, so yeah, there's that. We have the Ryuryoku. This card does give us the ability to go ahead and get over our opponent's bigger monsters, so I guess there's some utility there. And as I mentioned, a Legendary Ocean is not only going to be powering up the Deuterion, but also the Hydrogeddon. But now, the most important thing in this deck besides the Carboneddon is the skill Under Pressure. And essentially, this skill gives the ability to Hyzenaru to go ahead and excavate the top 4 cards of the deck to activate effects based on what you end up excavating. If you excavate the Carboneddon, it gives your Hyzenaru an 1000 attack boost, which is pretty incredible. If you end up excavating a Hydrogeddon, it makes your Hyzenaru unaffected by your opponent's monster effects. And finally, the most important effect here is the Oxygeddon effect, where if you go ahead and excavate that card, you're able to destroy a face-up monster your opponent controls and then burn your opponent for 800 damage. As you can see, this deck is really fun, and I think it's the best deck you can make for Bastion that doesn't include the H2O cards, which I just personally, in my opinion, think are not very good. So much so that I didn't even bother building a deck for them. But in the comments below, let me know, have you been able to make the deck work? And if so, tell me how you did it, or give me a deck list in the comments below. I'm very curious. Alright then, so last character up for this set is none other than the Paradox Brothers. If you've seen my videos in the past, then you know that there's one character in particular that I like shitting on a lot, that being Esperoba and his slew of terrible decks that Konami's giving them throughout the SpeedDuel boxes. But there's another character that gets done just as dirty as Esperoba, but only got one deck, thankfully enough, and that is the Paradox Brothers. Good God. I don't know what Konami was thinking specifically when constructing the Paradox Brothers, because of the fact that this deck is just straight up a dog water. It's atrocious, it's terrible. Don't get me wrong, I understand why he gets some of the cards that they do, but the clowns? Really? And like, why? You know what? I'm getting straight away from what I'm trying to say. As a whole, this deck is horrendous and it doesn't really do anything all that well. So building something coherent for the Paradox Brothers was a bit more challenging than I originally thought it was going to be, but I did my best. Not to mention the fact that, in my opinion, Konami did a horrendous job when constructing the skills. 2 out of the 3 skills are unplayably bad, so much so that I believe 1 or 2 of them ended up making it in my video where I talked about the worst skills in SpeedDuel. So if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. But there is just one skill that I saw that had some potential of being usable in this deck. So without further ado, let's take a look at what I ended up doing for the Paradox Brothers. Alright then, so here is the deck that I ended up constructing for the Paradox Brothers. And yeah, it's interesting to say the least. Essentially, I still wanted to go ahead and have the ability to make the Gate Guardian pieces somewhat viable in this deck. And you could say that I somewhat succeeded. Essentially, the whole point of this deck is that we're going to be trying to utilize the ability of Soul Exchange in order to go ahead and tribute off our opponent's stuff in order to summon out the Gate Guardian pieces. Simple enough. But additionally, we also need another way to beat our opponent that doesn't involve requiring the Gate Guardian pieces. That's why we have the Clown Engine here as well. Typically, I wouldn't entertain something like that in a deck like this, but the Clowns did get one of the best pieces of support for themselves with the Labyrinth Nightmare, giving them the ability to go and activate their effects essentially immediately. So that's pretty great. And at that, the Dream Clown is a really powerful monster as well. Now, would I have preferred if the Paradox Brothers ended up receiving another card, like maybe like a Woboku, a Negate Attack, something like that, in order to go ahead and ensure that we're able to protect the clowns? Yes, but we didn't get access to that, so it is what it is. Additionally with that, we did end up utilizing some of the better cards in this deck as well, whether it be cards like the Stone Statue of the Aztecs, which is just massively in defense, or the Jiraiguma, which is another really big monster for us to summon out. It kind of behaves also as a wall for us to prevent our opponent from attacking us. So that's pretty nice. Aside from that, we are playing 1 copy of each of the Gate Guardian pieces. I will show you a modified version of this in case you don't want to build the one that I did. And yeah, and the Judgment of Anubis is primarily here to protect our Labyrinth Nightmare. It additionally behaves as back row protection, kinda, but it's the best we had available to us. So as I mentioned, there was only one skill in particular that I even felt comfortable even entertaining the idea of utilizing, that being Beware the Paradox Brothers. And this skill there's a lot going on with it. Essentially, this skill works by having no cards in your extra deck and you have to reveal a Gate Guardian piece or Gate Guardian himself. but in return you get a bunch of really interesting effects, like the ability to go ahead and normal summon level 7 monsters for just 1 tribute, which is pretty nice. It makes the soul exchange much better. The ability to go ahead and tribute summon in addition to your normal summon, making summoning out your Gate Guardian pieces a lot easier. Additionally, your opponent takes no effect damage, which is not really relevant here. And finally, you are restricted to only attack with 1 monster per turn during each battle phase, which is kind of annoying, but it's okay. I did mention there is a different variant of this deck you could be playing, but it is significantly much more high rolly, I suppose, for the very fact that you are going to be requiring the need of soul exchange to be in your hand more often than not. What you could do is that you could go ahead and forgo the clown pieces in general and then just double up on each of the Gate Guardian pieces. Doing this is going to pretty much ensure the fact that your Gate Guardian pieces are going to be always live in order to have your skill in Big War the Paradox Brothers be live more often than not. And doing so, you can go ahead and add more copies of the Juragumo and the stone statues of the Aztecs. And finally, you could go ahead and wrap up with a card like another copy of Judgment of Anubis. Maybe you could add like a Fairy Meteor Crush, something like that. As you can see, there is a few ways to build this deck, but as a whole, it's super reliant on your opponent having a monster on the field, you having the soul exchange already in hand, or just another monster in order to tribute out the Gate Guardian piece. But yeah, as you can see, I'm not a huge fan of the Paradox Brothers. I think their deck is lacking quite a bit, and it's kind of just whatever for me. But yeah, that's pretty much all the decks from the Midterm Paradox set. Give me your thoughts in the comment section below. And with that, this concludes today's video. In the comment section below, give me your thoughts on today's decks and what changes you would personally make. Anyway, if you'd like to show your support for the channel, then please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. But if you would like to take it a step further, then you can always become a channel member for only 99 cents. You get a badge next to your name with custom Topsy emojis and a shout out at the end of the videos. On that note, huge shout out to our current channel members, PushX to start, and of course, Zedric. Huge thank you to you guys, and I really do appreciate it. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye guys.